Hello everybody, my name is Filippo Lezzerini. I'm a founder member of Punto 3, an Italian consulting agency which supports several biosphere reserve in the achievement of the MAB program functions, in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Project, and in the involvement of local communities and stakeholders. This speech is dedicated to a very relevant topic for all the Biosphere Reserve, the use of their own brand. It is a complex topic because even if the Biosphere Reserve have common needs for the use of the brand, the specific characteristics of each territory and community make a unitary model ineffective for the whole network. However, some methodological approaches are emerging in the last times, and these can be considered useful reference models for biosphere reserve branding strategies. First of all, please allow me to thank all the organizers and supporters of the Hybrid Austerusia University for the excellent work and for the challenge they faced, not to interrupt the training action related to the MAP program despite the difficulties imposed by the pandemic. Let's start with some basic considerations that should be always kept in mind. First, the UNESCO brand is one of the best known in the world and it has a very positive reputation. This positive rating is also reflected on the brand of the MAP program. Second, that's why the UNESCO MAP brand is highly desired. With regard to the Biosphere Reserve, it's useful to know that the request of the use of a Biosphere Reserve brand is one of the most frequent and relevant. It comes from a large part of the population and stakeholder, such as public bodies, tourism companies, farmers, craftsmen, cultural associations, school, event organizers. Besides, the Lima Action Plan, with Action C7.2, stimulate the Biosphere Reserve to promote the use of their own brand in marketing of goods and services. With regard to the use of the Biosphere Reserve brand, it may seem that there is a contrast between the global direction of the MAP program and the territorial needs of each Biosphere Reserve. UNESCO limits the use of its brand and of the MAP program too, strictly forbidding their association with products, services, or initiatives that have a commercial purpose. For the MAP program, it's also important to avoid that the value of the Biosphere Reserve will be mainly attributed to the use of its brand, distracting from the purpose of its sustainability mission. The aim is to avoid the label risk by confusing the Biosphere Reserve brand among the many existing quality brands. It is also very important to avoid that the use of a brand deviates from the economic value of a cultural operation, such as a Biosphere Reserve is. In a Biosphere Reserve, the improvement of the quality of life of the local communities should be achieved through a cultural growth through sustainable development. No shortcuts are allowed. On the other hand, most of the Biosphere Reserve have been recognized on territory whose communities really need to strengthen their economy. Of course, in accordance to paradigms of sustainable development. In relation to this, local stakeholders have high expectations from the designation at Biosphere Reserve and expect, especially through the use of the brand, to capitalize the effort they make to conserve the biodiversity of their territory. In other cases, the brand of the Biosphere Reserve is expected by the local stakeholders as a distinctive element of their own territory, useful to underline the quality of their environment and the efforts that the communities to protect it. In reality, these different drivers, global and local, are all necessary and represent the guarantee that the branding strategy of a biosphere reserve can be at the same time coherent with the MAB values and effective for the biosphere reserve communities. In synthesis, the use of the brand according to a correct strategy is useful both for the biosphere reserve and for its stakeholders. Thanks to its brand, the biosphere reserve can strengthen its identity and stimulate the sense of belonging of its community. Moreover, by responding to a need strongly felt by stakeholders, it can find an important opportunity to involve new ones towards sustainable development path. Finally, offering its brand to products, events and services is an excellent way to multiply the biosphere reserve audience and notoriety. On the other hand, for the stakeholder, the use of the biosphere reserve brand means starting or enhancing the qualification of the products and services, or adopting social responsibility actions. Through the use of the biosphere reserve brand, it's also possible to communicate the balanced relationship that certain products have with the territory they come from. Without doubt, the brand of a biosphere reserve also means for many stakeholders a way to improve their reputation and a powerful green marketing tool. That's why the biosphere reserve must be sure that it never turns into greenwashing. To define a strategy and the rules for the concession of the brand is crucial for a biosphere reserve. However, this is often complicated, also because the biosphere reserves have to manage institutional uses separately from promotional and commercial ones. In the institutional use, the brand of the biosphere reserve is placed side by side with those of UNESCO and the MAP program. This use is functional to all the communication needs of a biosphere reserve to promote its own activities and projects. It is allowed mainly to the biosphere reserve coordinator. The institutional brand can also be attributed to other public bodies of the territory, in particular municipalities or schools, but only to promote their belonging to the biosphere reserve or their projects strictly connected to the biosphere reserve mission and absolutely non-commercial. The specific brand defined for each biosphere reserve, without any connection to those of UNESCO and MAP program, could be freely usable to meet the needs of local communities, even for promotional and economic aims. The rules for attributing its promotional brand vary greatly from reserve to reserve. It is determined by the characteristics of each territory and community and by the specific conservation and sustainable development objectives of each biosphere reserve. In particular, these rules are influenced by, first, the presence and diffusion of other environmental, sustainable, social brands or labels. The brand of a biosphere reserve must avoid overlapping or competing with other brands already well widespread on the territory, but rather try to create synergies with them. Second, the socio-economic characteristic of the territory to which the brand is addressed. If the territory is characterized by small and unstructured enterprises, the process of obtaining the brand cannot be too complex, becoming just for few, but rather stimulate these small realities toward a path of continuous sustainable improvement. On the other hand, if the Bus Reserve is operating in a context where the companies are already well qualified and organized, it is right to demand them significant sustainability performance for the concession of the brand. Third, the structure and the economic capacity of the Bus Reserve to manage the brand diffusion. If the Bus Reserve can count on few staff and few resources, the granting of the brand must be a simple process to manage, without lowering the level of attention and control. In the second part of the lesson, I will present you 3 different examples of Italian Biosphere Reserve which have developed their branding strategy and defined the rules for the concession of their promotional brand. See you later!